Hello, all you time-skipping people out there, and welcome to Undeclared Bajor. My name is Fletcher, about to say hello is Data.
Hey!
Today we're going to discuss and review Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 4, Episode 3, because the last one was technically 2 episodes. The Visitor. Alternate title, All Jake Things.
Okay. I was thinking for The Visitor you might do like a non-visitor pun, but no, okay, I got you.
No, I mean, I'm totally ready to do one. Sadly, nobody becomes a Nana in this episode to be visited by Nana Visitor, so...
Yeah, it's a shame.
Weirdly, this is not a Kira episode.
Although, there's some interesting bits about Kira in the thing for this, because this is the first episode where she wears her new colored uniform and her new, like, high-heeled shoes.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, so, I was listening to a interview the other day, or maybe it was an audio commentary on something, but somebody asked her about the shoes, because... At this point during the series, she transitions to these like more high-heeled shoes. And she said that it was like the producers came down and they were just like, we want to make your character more relatable or friendly. And one of the issues that they had was her walk. They told her she walked like John Wayne. And so she was like, "Well,
love John Wayne."
She was like, "Get me some like more feminine shoes, and the walk will improve or whatever." So they got her these shoes.
All right. As always, you can expect full spoilers up through this episode being discussed, and a possible small number of spoilers for later in the series, kept to an appropriate minimum. The Visitor originally aired October 9th, 1995. It was written by Michael Taylor and directed by David Livingston. Is Michael Taylor a new guy, or?
Hold on, let's find out. Michael Taylor, come on down. What have you done? He did 4 episodes of Deep Space Nine, and this was the first one. Oh. He will also do episodes such as Things Past, Resurrection, and In the Pale Moonlight.
Oh man, he's a interesting set of episodes under his belt.
He goes on to work on starting in the 3rd season of Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. He goes to work with them.
Ooh.
And he did 20 Voyager episodes, so I guess that's a bigger bit.
I mean, out of like 200 or something, though.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that he had a big chunk of Voyager, although that's a decent number. I'm just saying, like, that's a lot more than the 4 he did on Deep Space Nine or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a thing in here about the directors, because originally, like, so this episode is filmed somewhat out of order, or it was filmed after Hippocratic Oath, but Hippocratic Oath airs after this one. Mm-hmm. And so originally this one was supposed to be directed by Rene Auberjonois, and Hippocratic Oath was going to be directed by David Livingston. But a last minute change in Colm Meaney's film schedule meant that they had to do Hippocratic Oath first while he was available. So they switched the positions of the shooting, but they kept the directors on the weeks that they were going to direct. So Livingston ended up with this one.
Yeah, at some point in this episode, Chief O'Brien just stops being in it, and they never explain it.
Yeah, apparently in that like future scene, they had some interesting Chief O'Brien stuff and like some banter with him and Bashir and things like that. But it was just like, nope, he has a movie that he's doing, so he's not going to be here.
So they didn't even get to shoot it. I was like, that'd be crazy if they like put all the old man makeup on Chief O'Brien and they just cut his scenes out.
Nope, he was unavailable.
But anyway, it's a dark and stormy night in a mysterious house. The camera moves across a desk containing a picture of Ben and Jake, Captain Sisko's baseball, and a mysterious box. An old man holds the baseball for a second before opening up the box and taking out some kind of hypo spray thing and jabbing it like in his neck. Who is this mysterious old man, and why does he have Captain Sisko's baseball? This isn't good.
What's in the box?
Just as the man injects himself, his doorbell rings. He goes and opens the door, and there's a mysterious young woman there with a mysterious wound on her head, which she claims she got hitting her head on a tree or something. Likely story.
So, one note about this house, it says the illustrator based the design for Jake's house on the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland.
You know, it did have kind of a Haunted Mansion feel to it.
So, spoiler, the old man is Jake.
She wants to know if the old man is Jake Sisko, the writer. No, silly, Jake Sisko is just a kid and he lives on Deep Space Nine. Oh no, wait, I see what's going on here. Old man Jake treats her injury while she explains that she's an aspiring writer. And he's her inspiration. Uh-huh, yeah, right.
This girl, I mean, so the story here, clearly, as you can probably guess, is based on like the famous interview that J.D. Salinger gives to like some high school student or something.
I mean, I was getting definitely some J.D. Salinger vibes. I did not know J.D. Salinger ever gave a high school student an interview.
Yeah, apparently it was just like some kid showed up at his house in 1980 and was like, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And the like super reclusive guy was like, "Yeah, okay, sure."
Nice.
But it's just so, like, the balls on this girl to hunt down this guy who, you know, has been out of the limelight for decades and hasn't published, doesn't seem like he's interested in publishing, and just, she goes up to his house in the middle of the night, in the middle of a storm, and is like, I'm going to talk to you about being a writer. And I was just like, geez. And she's nice and polite enough, but she's consistently, like, creepily pushy.
Hey, I don't know. You gotta be bold sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, he treats her injury. She's like, I'm an aspiring writer. But she wants to know why he stopped writing. And he's like, okay, since you showed up on this particular night, I'll tell you. So it's like, oh, what's going on here? It all started when I was 18, and my father died.
What?
So what? But your father's Captain Sisko. He died when you were 18?
And then you're like, wait, how old was Jake the last time we saw him? I don't remember.
So is this like 2 years in the future? Well, we see the story of Jake working obsessively on a short story while on a field trip on the Defiant to the Gamma Quadrant to see the wormhole do a once-in-a-50-years thing called a subspace inversion, which I don't think we ever actually see in the whole episode, even though there's 2 of them.
No, it just happens and affects things.
And then, this is also where Sisko gives Jake, I guess, the important line of the episode where you have to peek your head up every once in a while to see life going on, or whatever. But somebody put metal in the microwave or something, because as soon as the inversion starts, the ship starts shaking, and there's some kind of problem in engineering. Sisko runs down to help, and Jake follows, even though I think Sisko told him to stay there. Seeing Jake, Sisko asks for a tool, which at first Jake can't find, but Sisko's like, look under that dead guy. And yeah, the thing is under that dead guy.
No, it was like in his hand, because that engineer also knew they needed this tool, and so he had it ready to go.
But Jake's like, oh yeah, this dead guy has it. No biggie. So Sisko shoves the thing in a thing, and it seems to solve the problem. But when he hands the thing back to Jake, some lightning shoots out, and this lightning knocks Jake down and then makes Sisko vanish completely. And apparently it's just immediately decided that the captain is dead, and a big memorial service is held. So it's like they forgot the 8,000 previous times in the Star Trek universe when stuff like this happened, and the person was okay.
Well, I mean, how they probably scienced it and censored it and stuff, and couldn't find him. What are they supposed to do?
They tricorded around. They're like, well, I don't see his ghost or anything here, so I guess he's gone.
If he's somehow secretly alive, I'm sure he'll like let us know, as they always do.
Exactly. It's like the best thing to do in these situations is just wait and see. As months go by, the station moves on, but not Jake. We get a scene where he and Nog go, or where it's implied they go ion surfing in the holosuite, and then afterwards they discuss future plans. Jake considers taking that deferred admission to the New Zealand writing school, but he's not sure. Then that night, he's woken up by a flash of light. He looks over to see his dad sitting on the floor, but a moment later, he's gone. Old Jake explains to the visitor girl that Dax came in and scanned the room, but found nothing.
This girl, by the way, played by, let's see, sorry, I lost her name for a second. Rachel Robinson, daughter of Andrew Robinson.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Cool connection. Months later, war with the Klingons looms and the civilians start leaving the station. Kira tries to urge Jake to go live with his grandfather on Earth, but Jake doesn't want to leave. So they make a deal that he can stay, but when the time really comes where he has to leave, he'll leave. So if the Klingons or whoever take over the station, he won't try to leave, or he won't try to stay.
Yeah. I mean, she says, like, when I tell you it's time to leave, then you will leave. Right. So hopefully she doesn't die or something before that.
It's like, ooh, loophole. Walking down the corridor, Jake sees another flash of light and finds his father laying on the floor. This time, the captain stays around long enough to be taken to the infirmary and examined by everyone. They try to keep Sisko from vanishing again, but it's no use. He's gone, but not before making Jake promise that he'll be all right with him gone.
Well, trying to make Jake promise. Jake is incapable of actually promising because he's just like, really disturbed as a kid would be in that situation.
Yeah, understandably. Back in the future, old Jake starts struggling and tells the mystery visitor that he's dying. Then we go to commercial and when we come back, he's like, I mean, I'm dying in the sense that we're all dying.
Like, not really. I was just messing with you guys to make sure you came back from the commercial.
Right? Although, actually, he is dying, so...
Yeah, right? I was just like, why have, like, is that like a triple fake? I don't know.
My head is spinning. He continues his story. The Federation turns Deep Space Nine over to the Klingons, and Jake finally has to leave in a cool little shot that kind of mirrors the shot in the pilot when he first goes into the station.
Mm-hmm.
He heads back to Earth to study writing and eventually moves to Louisiana to be near his grandfather. Many years later, Jake, now played by Tony Todd, and his wife, who seems to be a Bajoran artist, get a visit from Commander Nog. We learn that Deep Space Nine is still in the hands of the Klingons, and looking a little run down. Quark and Rom have their own moon, and the bar is now being run by Morn.
Tony Todd in his second Star Trek role, by the way.
Yeah, he was, I know we had an episode with him, didn't we? Or was it on...
He plays Worf's brother.
Oh, okay. I was like, I feel like we've talked about Tony Todd being on the show before.
Yeah, probably.
So.
This is his second of 3 appearances, because later he will be a Hirogen. Or,
nice.
Not appearances, I guess characters, because
sure.
Worf's brother appears more than once. So.
That night, he's working on a new novel when there's another flash of light. His father appears again, and the two get a chance to catch up. Jake feels guilty that he hasn't done more to look for his dad, but Ben just tells him to live his life, and also he wants grandchildren.
I love how happy Sisko is, where he's like, he sees that Jake is okay after that last experience, and he's like, oh my gosh, you married a Bajoran, I love Bajorans. And it's like, also I want some grandchildren, where are they at?
It's like, just because I'm a time-traveling ghost doesn't mean you're off the hook for grandkids. Then old Jake reveals that after that, he put aside his writing career and went back to school to study science, and seeming total disregard for his dad's wishes.
Yep. Well, and his wife's apparently, since he ignores her to the point that she leaves him after that.
Right. He becomes so obsessed, his wife leaves. After a long time, he and the old gang get back together to take the Defiant out to see the next subspace inversion. So it's been 50 years.
Wearing costumes and comm badges from All Good Things.
And old people makeup.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the old people makeup is better than others, but at the very least, it notes in here that they decided to get Tony Todd for the part because they didn't think that it was feasible to put Sarah Lofton in like old person makeup to the point that he would need to be. And
I think that's a fair decision.
Yeah.
But they did go ahead and do it to Nog, but I guess it's easier to age up that Ferengi makeup or something.
Yeah, they got some experience doing that. I mean, we did like Moogie and stuff also, and Zek. So they've old personed that up before.
And then Bashir is just bringing back his old man Bashir
right.
shtick. he's like, "Oh man, I'm getting to be old man Bashir again." I thought the old lady makeup on Dax looked pretty good too.
Yeah, Dax was one of the ones that I thought was better done. Even like when they age up Tony Todd.
Although, did she have spots?
I think she did.
Okay.
When they age up Tony Todd to super old, I was kind of like,
Yeah. Well, because they also gave Tony Todd lots of super close-ups.
Yeah, that's true.
So it makes it kind of hard to hide the makeup.
But I gotta say, dude is out here like chewing the scenery. Like he's acting the hell out of this part.
Who, Tony Todd?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's committing. He's a pro. He has a kind of a weird, different way of talking than Jake does, but
for sure.
Whatever.
In 50 years, lots can change, I guess.
True. People can change how they talk.
Or 70 years, however long it's supposed to be.
He's been living in Louisiana all this time, so.
Yeah.
So yeah, they go to the subspace inversion. Jake sets up an experiment to try to get his father back. This time, Ben and Jake are both sucked into some kind of subspace void. They're just in the, glowy white place that people go sometimes.
Right, and Jake is obsessed with trying to fix stuff, and his dad's like, "Dude, just talk to me for a minute." Like,
yeah, he's constantly tapping his comm badge. Ben's like, "Look, I'm sure Dax has not forgotten that you exist in the last 5 seconds. Let's just talk." But yeah, he's disappointed to hear that Jake sacrificed his marriage and his writing career to try to help him. So he asks Jake again, promise that he'll go back and live his own life again. And then Jake is kicked out of the subspace thingy without Ben. Then old man Jake points the visitor to a pile of papers that he explains is a bunch of stories he wrote to honor his father's wishes. So he's like, "Yep, I wrote all these stories for my dad. But I'm not going to have them published until after I die, so I don't have to listen to the editor's notes." Which is literally what he says. Then he explains he's figured out that he and his father are connected by some kind of temporal rubber band.
Yep.
That goes slack and taut and drags the captain through time with Jake. And Jake, with his, I guess now PhD in subspace mechanics, figures out that when he dies, the cord will be cut. And if that happens while the cord is slack, Ben will be lost in subspace. Which, is that what does that entail? That sounds kind of like a fate worse than death.
Yep, absolutely does.
So, I mean, I would be concerned about that. But if they're together when he dies, then Ben will return to the original moment of the accident. The logic of these rules is a little weird, but I'm willing to roll with it.
Also, I guess whatever he took at the beginning was super time-specific poison. I don't... It really seems like a roll of the dice to me, given that when Ben does show up here in a minute, Jake is asleep. And so I was like, man, what if you'd been asleep the whole time? Or, but maybe that's why he took it, so it would kill him at that specific moment somehow.
Well, maybe there's a window. I don't know.
A gun seems like a better approach to me, but whatever.
I mean, that might be a little bit disturbing for the tone of this episode.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
He's like, "Now that you're here, Dad, I can do this." And he just takes out a revolver and points it at his own head. Ben might be a little disturbed by that. So the visitor deduces that Ben is coming there tonight and says goodbye and takes Jake's stories and runs off, having learned Jake's lesson of poke your head up every once in a while to see life.
Her name is Melanie, by the way.
Yeah, I think they said her name at some point.
I also like that he's like, "Hey, let me give you a free copy of my upcoming book." And she's like, "Can I have this one with your personal stuff on it? It'll be worth more on eBay."
Right? she's selling that on eBay or something.
Future Bay, whatever it's called.
Right.
Although, no money in the Federation, so...
right.
Actually, thinking of that, how do you get a house in Louisiana, a big, nice house, if there's no money?
Yeah, I always wondered that. How do you own a chateau with a vineyard?
Well, see, for Picard, I kind of got it, because it's it's been in the family.
Okay.
So it gets, inherited or whatever, and that's fine. So, I mean, do you just find somebody who owns this house and doesn't want it and offer to barter something with them? I don't know.
I mean, the economics of the Federation are so fuzzy.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I mean, maybe it's a situation where you don't need money, but,
but
all your needs will be taken care of if you need. But, I mean, you also have the freedom to go out and, get a house in New Orleans or whatever.
It's like socialized medicine, but having health insurance doesn't hurt.
Right. I don't know. But Jake falls asleep and is awakened by his father, who is happy to see that Jake got back to writing. Then Jake explains his plan to Ben. Ben is naturally upset that Jake would do that for him. But Jake explains it's just as much for the boy he was. He's like, look, there's that boy that you left behind. We have the second chance.
Also, at this point, I wasted like 30 or 40 years of my life on the thing that didn't work. So I'd like to get those back too.
Yeah. Will this erase this timeline and that lady that was just here? Who knows?
Right, she better read that book fast.
Right. Her entire world is about to stop existing.
Yeah.
But then Jake dies, and Ben is immediately back in the moment of the accident. He dodges the lightning bolt, and he and Jake are safe. And he hugs Jake, with Jake having no clue what's going on.
Right. I guess the implication being that he retains the memories of what happened.
Right. Yep.
So he's going to be on the lookout for that Bajorn girl to try to hook Jake up with her.
Yep. Just like go through all of Bajoran Facebook until he finds her.
Right, yeah. He's super artistic. You'll love him.
But yep, that's the end.
Yep, some interesting stuff. Hold on, I was pulling out other stuff to
kind of the opposite problem of the previous episode, where like that episode was so long but also so dense it was hard to condense. But
this one is very straightforward.
Yeah. Well, this one's like more told in like the emotional moments, not
for sure. Yeah, it's like definitely all about the emotion.
Yeah.
Let's see. People accused Kira's new uniform of being the producers trying to turn her into a Baywatch babe. Which Ira Steven Bear strenuously denies.
I didn't even notice this uniform once again, so...
It's more open at the collar, I guess, and it says it's more body conscious, is what the quote in here, which she liked because the previous uniform had made it difficult to move. So I guess maybe it's more form-fitting? I don't know.
Huh.
Also, speaking of uniforms, apparently this is the first episode where O'Brien has like an embroidered rank thingy on his collar.
Oh, I've been looking out for that, but I missed it this time too.
He's not in the episode that much.
Yeah, he's just in that one scene basically where they're in the sick bay.
Yeah, well, and he's also I think he appears in at the funeral or wake or whatever for Cisco. Yeah. The most unbelievable thing about the future in this episode to me is that the Dominion just never does anything. Well, they're just like, oh, it's fine. Leave the Alpha Quadrant alone. Cisco died. I
was thinking about that. Because we never really got confirmation one way or another. And then Nog has the part where he says, like, the Klingons allowed him to go on a mission through the wormhole, quote, after all these years.
Yeah.
To see how the Dominion would react to someone coming through. So
right.
I thought maybe that could have been a little hint of some Dominion action that they didn't make explicit.
Like something happened after the Klingons took over the station. Maybe they were better at fighting off the Dominion at the wormhole.
Yeah. Or, maybe events played out sort of the same way, but just, the Klingons in control of the wormhole.
Maybe the Klingons took out the whole Cardassian Empire or Union or whatever it is at that point.
Yeah. I wonder if Odo stayed on the station after the...
Yeah, it feels like he wouldn't get along with the Klingons that well. Maybe he went back to his people.
Yeah, there wasn't much mention of Odo in the whole episode.
I guess, he was supposed to direct this one. Maybe he was he wasn't in it. They might have picked him for it since he wasn't in it much specifically.
Yeah, could be.
Let's see. What else in here? There's a lot of as you're probably aware, a lot of people rank this among the best all-time Deep Space Nine, if not best all-time Star Trek episodes.
Sure.
It was very popular in the fandom.
I was getting a very definitive Captain Bait vibes from this episode.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And the guy who plays Jake, it was quoted in 2020. All these years later, you know what's going to happen. You know what it's about. I've read the script. It's been 25 years, but I'm still dripping tears watching this episode. I can't make myself not feel these emotions. You feel the loss. You feel the emptiness. You feel the regret.
Like Sirach Lofton said that?
Yeah. So yeah, he still has strong feelings about it. Honestly, when you have Tony Todd doing most of the lifting as Jake's character in the episode, I was like, Did they think that Sarah Clofton wasn't capable of, the acting that was necessary for this?
I felt like he was bringing it.
But I think that the reasoning about the not being able to make him look that old, I was like, no, that makes sense. Okay.
And Tony Todd, when we see him in his 30s or whatever, I think he does a kind of a good job kind of playing like a 30-something-year-old Jake.
Yeah, I could see that. Avery Brooks also says it's one of his favorite episodes. He sees this as an important milestone in the manner in which American TV depicts non-white families. And so the quote, "I'm glad that relationship is there." There's the relationship between Cisco and Jake. "It is, even in the most naive mind, a sin of omission that we have not looked at this side of people raising their children in other television shows and having some cultural resonance other than that of white Americans. It's something that we have to see more of, the relationship between a brown man and his son, because historically, that's not how it began in this country for brown families, who didn't have the freedom of their own will and volition, let alone the ability to hold their families together." So, yeah, that's... knowing Avery Brooks, that sounds very much like the sort of thing that he'd be like, this is the most important thing here. And so, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he's into that stuff.
Ira Stephen Bear says that this is something you don't see a lot of on TV. This kind of love, a love stronger than death. Usually that's romantic love. But for this show, this series, we chose the love between father and son. And it worked like gangbusters. Everybody could relate to it.
Ira Stephen Bear said that?
Yeah. Doesn't that sound like Ira Stephen Bear, too?
He's like, we invented this brand new concept that fathers and sons love each other. So, well, good job.
Way to go, guy.
Yeah.
So, Nog is also depicted as a Starfleet captain in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine series Millennium, where he is the protege of Jean-Luc Picard, which that would have been an interesting relationship to see.
Huh. Is that a series of books, or...?
Yeah, the Millennium, I think it's a trilogy of books. I remember having read that one.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one around somewhere.
I remember the covers being cool, but that's all I kind of remember offhand. Let's see. The episode is nominated for a Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation, which was won by the Babylon 5 episode The Coming of Shadows. It was also up against Apollo 13, Toy Story, and 12 Monkeys for the Hugo Award.
Huh. I mean, Apollo 13 was a true story, but...
It's still a dramatic presentation.
Yeah, but doesn't it have to be a science fiction work?
I don't know. I don't know how the Hugo Awards work in all honesty. This was also nominated for the
Toy Story.
Yeah, Toy Story. Right, that's the one that stuck out to me.
Maybe it doesn't have to be science fiction. Although A World of Talking Toys is, I guess,
right,
kind of science fiction-y.
Well, they don't really get into the science of it, so it's almost more fantasy, I think.
Yeah.
The episode was nominated for the Emmy for Outstanding Makeup for a Series, but that award was won by the Voyager episode Threshold, which, if I remember right, we've talked about before, is the one where they break the warp barrier and turn into big lizard things.
Didn't that almost exact same thing happen with the Distant Voices makeup, or?
I don't recall. Hold on. So yeah, I do remember something similar coming up before. Let me see. Let me go back to the Distant Voices page. Distant Voices won the Emmy for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Makeup. It beat the Voyager episode Faces.
Oh, okay. So
other way around.
Voyager got its revenge.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess.
They had to step up that makeup work a little bit and get that award.
Yep. Just like constantly competing to get that makeup Emmy.
That sweet, sweet makeup.
So, kind of like you brought up, you were talking about how it seems like the Dominion War never happened.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I was thinking, kind of a missed opportunity almost, is that they could have used this episode as sort of a teaser for future events in the season.
Oh, they could have. That's a really good point.
But, played out a little bit differently. I mean...
Missed opportunity, yeah.
Although, I mean, you can't cram a ton. It's easy to say that. It's probably harder to,
well, yeah, but it's that one line about, testing the waters after all these years. You could have changed that line and just dropped a little hint about, the disaster that happened or whatever.
Sure. But who knows how much of the season they had written at this point and stuff also.
That's true, yeah. We don't know how much they figured out ahead of time.
And then I'm just kind of curious about the alternate timeline in general hinted at in this episode.
The No Cisco timeline.
Right. Because apparently, I guess having no Cisco shook the Bajorans so much that they lost faith in the Federation or something.
I don't know. And it may be that without the emissary there to turn them in certain directions or encourage things, that it changed. But it may also just be that, like, apparently no one was interested in fighting the Klingons, and so the Klingons just gradually took over this area, and then Bajor's like, okay, I guess we'll make a treaty with them. They're way tougher.
Yeah.
Apparently, I mean, speaking of this alternate timeline, it does mention that Melanie, the character, appears in the framing story of an anthology book called Prophecy and Change.
Oh, okay.
So she's still out there somewhere.
And that book takes place in the regular timeline, not the alternate timeline?
I don't know. It's... hold on, let me see. Because it is an anthology, as it says. Let's see. Pathways Traveled. The widowed father struggling to rebuild his shattered life. Challenges conquered. The resistance fighter who aided her former oppressors. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I've read this one, and the description in here is not very useful. The Andrew J. Robinson short story in this anthology acts as a sequel to his Deep Space Nine novel, A Stitch in Time.
Ooh, interesting.
And The Dream Box, a two-person play about Garrick and Julian Bashir, written and performed by Robinson and Alexander Siddig. Oh, well, that's nice.
Huh.
They performed the play at Star Trek conventions.
Wait, they wrote it also?
No, this play. So, okay, there's the novel, which Andrew J. Robinson did write. And then, I guess, as a sequel to that novel is this play, The Dream Box, which is a two-person play written and performed by these two guys.
So they did write it?
Yes. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I was just rereading this. And then there's a short story in this anthology that is a sequel to those two things that continues that story. So that's interesting.
Okay.
And I guess one of these short stories shows that it was written by Andrew J. Robinson, so probably it's that one.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah, they performed it at Star Trek conventions, which that's kind of cool.
Huh. That's interesting. Is this part of the, like, official Star Trek Deep Space Nine series of books or whatever? The anthology? The
anthology is, I mean, it's by Pocket Books, so I guess, yeah, that's the people who do those. It says, the essential facts, including the shock climax of the play, are raised in the short story. Now I want to know about this play. I want to know the shocking climax. I'm going to have to hunt that down later, see if it's written down anywhere.
Shocking.
Oh, okay, so apparently Nog also shows up in Star Trek Online as a captain. And I played a little bit of Star Trek Online. I didn't get too deep into it. But it was free, so, you know.
So I guess we can jump into ratings, starting with the title rating.
The Visitor. Yeah. I keep forgetting we've moved where the title goes.
Right.
I don't think it's a bad title. It's another one of those just very generic sort of things that could mean a lot of things. I think that it fits okay.
Yeah. It's like, who is the real Visitor? Is it Melanie? Is it Ben? Is it Nana Visitor?
All of the above.
It works in a lot of different ways.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little, I guess, vague or something, but once again, it's like, what would you call this episode? Like, Ben Sisko dies and goes through time.
Space Ghost.
The death of Ben Sisko. There's a little bit of a death of Superman.
They could have done that. That would be a bold choice for a title of the episode. But he like dies, quote unquote, so early in the episode that it's not like you're really spoiling it.
Right. Although, just the fact that we're starting with Old Man Jake, and if the episode was told a little bit more from Ben's point of view, maybe it could have been called like The Death of Benjamin Sisko or something. But
just call it Old Man Jake.
Ooh. Okay, but now real review. How would you rate The Visitor?
Okay, so this episode, I mean, like I said, often touted as one of the best episodes of Deep Space Nine. It is deeply emotional.
Yeah.
I think that they do an excellent job hitting all of the notes. I think, and I have to say, that this is probably the first time that we've had a Jake story anywhere near this quality. Like, we've rarely had Jake stories, period. The last time that Jake featured heavily was, there would have been The Explorers, and that was just like, hey, Dad, I got into this writing school, but I don't think I'm going to go yet. And his dad's like, good job, dude.
Uh-huh.
Which is not a lot of real drama in that Jake story. So I feel like finally, maybe for the first time in the series, they were like, let's do a Jake story and let's like really do a Jake story.
Yeah.
And I think they knocked it out of the park with the Jake story. Not to mention that, like I said, you got like the Candyman in here just doing a hell of a job, really carrying the episode and doing a good job of it, I thought. So
no bees, but
and it's just the emotional core of the episode is handled so well, and we've gotten to know this relationship over the past 3 years, even though like Sirach Lofton not being in an episode is almost like a meme on this show at this point, because like half of the episodes I feel like I'm reading through the notes and it's like Sirach Lofton does not appear in this episode, because he's often not there because he's not Starfleet. He doesn't get in on the big main stories a lot of the times. So, but having built up the relationship between them the way that we have so far, it was timed really well for a story like this to hit really hard.
Yeah.
And personally, being a dad myself, like I feel like it hits even harder in that sense.
Sure.
I'm just like, oh my gosh. So objectively, I feel like this is like a Captain all day long. If I was being objective, the problem is that it is my rating, and the thing is, I think they did too good of a job at what they were going for me to like the episode as much as I should, because this episode makes me really sad and is hard for me to watch. And I'm sorry, Deep Space Nine, I don't want to be that sad when I'm watching Star Trek. Like, I don't like it. I don't want to, like, I didn't remember what episode we were doing next, and I started watching it, and like 2 minutes in, I was like, I can't do this right now. I'm not in a place where I can do this right now. I'm gonna have to come back and do this later. So I don't think that I could get away with letting myself put it any lower than a Commander, but it can't be a Captain for me, because right. I don't like where this episode takes me. So I'm putting it at a Commander. Yeah,
it is a little bit weird sometimes when you're watching a TV show and then it hits you with something this heavy and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I thought I was watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine here. Yeah, I get that. I was just sitting there waiting for like the shoe to drop on your like.
Yeah. Even the episodes before now that have famously been like good and serious, like Duet is the one that sticks out to me. Right. Where Duet is sad towards the end, especially. We don't know anybody as well at that point, and Kira in particular. But Duet at least has kind of a balance where it kind of takes you on an emotional ride, where it's like you're not sure about this guy, and then when you find out who he supposedly is, you like hate him because he goes so hard on the evil, and then you feel sorry for him, and then it's sad.
Right.
But this one is just like hitting you again and again with how sad it is, and I can't handle it.
Yeah, I think an episode like Duet kind of prepares you a little bit also for what you're getting into. Yeah, I can see that. I was thinking about episodes like the flute episode.
The Inner Light. There's a note in here that says this is a lot like the Inner Light, except that Picard, grows old as somebody else.
Right. And the Inner Light is kind of a controversial episode. Like, some people love it, and some people are like, oh, meh. I'm generally up on the Inner Light, but it is this fine line of like letting a show surprise you with that kind of emotion, and then just having it like really go those places. Okay, why is this dog yapping? Anyway, my review. I just kept going back and forth on this episode because I would think, this is, like I said, Captain Bait.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, I just can't personally take it. There's a lot of amazing stuff in here. Like, I think the acting is all really good. And Sirach Lofton had some moments that really kind of surprised me. I was like, oh, wow. He's, like, taking it there, and it's working. So I was like, but I don't know, just Captain, like, I can't something feels a little wrong about me calling it a captain. But then I would think, well, if I call it a commander, that somehow feels mean to the episode. So I spent a lot of time like analyzing it. One thing about this episode is I think the writers had to make a lot of choices. Because mainly, is it a Ben episode or is it a Jake episode? And they landed, I think, correctly on Jake episode. Because like you said, we've never really had a Jake story of this caliber before.
Yeah.
But I kept thinking about what if the episode was from Ben's point of view? Like what that would look like. Where he just keeps flashing and then we see through his eyes getting to watch his son like grow up and all this stuff. That would have been a really good episode too.
Interesting.
So I was like, I can just imagine what it was like writing this episode where, you know, you have all these kind of angles that you have to consider. And then, I mean, ultimately you can only go down one road.
Mm-hmm.
Something that didn't quite work for me was the framing device, where I guess you say it's based on a true story of someone who paid a visit to J.D. Salinger.
Yeah.
It was like this stranger shows up and they're kind of playing it for mystery in the early parts of the episode, I felt like. And it's like, is this girl going to turn out to be the ghost of his dad or something? Or, you know, what's going on here? But, you know, ultimately he just kind of passes on his little poke your head up and live life every once in a while, like smell the roses lesson.
Yeah.
And then she goes off and then a minute later he like destroys her entire universe or whatever. So it just felt a little flat to me in that sense. Like I would have said it would be great if he was like telling the story to his grandkids or something, but I think kind of the point of the story is he doesn't have any kids or grandkids because he sacrificed that part of his life. So again, you know, I was thinking of like, you know, what if we did this? But then you're like, oh, but then you wouldn't get this out of it. So it's a really challenging episode to write. I think it's a really, really good episode, but also I'm just going to give it a commander.
Okay.
If ever there was like a 3.5 pip, which we are not introducing now or ever, like this would be a contender for it. I mean, and it was fun too, having the all good things type, checking up on people, little parts. I did enjoy those. Like Morn is running Quarks now and all this stuff.
Talking people's ears off, drinking himself broke. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So that was fun, even if, you know, they really had the opportunity, to, like I said, to put in some good teasers for the season, but
I do like the implication that Quark was far more successful under like Klingon running of the station than under the Federation, because he was able to eventually afford that moon that he wanted. And so like the Klingons were probably way more bribable about like, you know, all of his messed up shady dealings.
Sure.
Assuming that Odo wasn't there, I guess. I
mean, have we ever said that it's been Quark's goal to own a moon?
No, but he's always talking about how his cousin has one. So I think that he's very wistful about that. So I'm not
just in his mind, that's a sign of success.
I guess, yeah.
Is owning a moon.
I wonder what the upkeep on a moon is like.
Right. I mean, moon. A lot of stuff falls into moon. So
that's true. There's a wide range of moon. Even just in our solar system, there's a wide range of moon.
Like what is the definition of the moon? Just like a natural satellite?
I assume that it has to be like above a certain, but I don't know. Maybe. Mm-hmm. Hold on.
Yeah, we're gonna look.
What qualifies as a not tax-free weekend moon? A moon is an object that orbits a planet or something else that is not a star. Besides planets, moons can circle dwarf planets, large asteroids, and other bodies. Objects that orbit other objects are also called satellites, so moons are sometimes called natural satellites. Okay, so yeah, I mean, there doesn't seem to be any, at least according to National Geographic, this brief thing, there doesn't seem to be a size classification requirement type thing.
There's no established lower limit on what is considered a moon. Every natural celestial body with an identified orbit around a planet of the solar system, some as small as a kilometer across, have been considered a moon, though objects a tenth of that size within Saturn's rings which have not been directly discovered, have been called moonlets.
Ooh, moonlet.
Small asteroid moons, natural satellites of asteroids such as Dactyl, have also been called moonlets. The upper limit is also vague. Two orbiting bodies are sometimes described as a double planet rather than a planet, than a primary and satellite.
Oh, that makes sense if they're like orbiting each other. Which, I mean, that's kind of like how Pluto works with its moon, but
asteroids such as 90 and Antiope are considered double asteroids, but they have not forced a clear definition of what constitutes a moon. So, just moon can mean lots of different stuff, I guess, according to astronomers.
Quark bought a very tiny moon. It's fine.
Right. I hope he's happy with his moon.
Right, yeah. He and Rom hanging out on the moon, maybe all alone for all we know. It's fine.
Right. Just got their own little moon up there.
I mean, apparently, like, female Ferengi are not allowed to leave Ferenginar, so it's not even like he could, like, buy himself a wife and have her there.
I mean, unless he married a non-Ferengi.
Well, yeah, but then you're probably not buying her. I mean, maybe there's other species that would also, but...
So the name of Jake's book is Anselm?
Yep.
I was wondering if there's any, like, background lore indicating what that might be.
Well, it will reappear in a later episode.
Oh, okay.
Beyond that, let's see if I can find anything on Anselm.
Is that like his adventure story of the Maquis?
Well, it'll come back later in season 4, actually, so we'll get some more information about it this season. In its original conception, at least, it was somewhat autobiographical. The mother of the main character was deceased, though that was only one of several themes Jake hoped to incorporate.
Huh.
In the Millennium Trilogy, Anselm is stated to be part autobiographical book that Jake works on every now and then. Short excerpts begin each of the 3 books in the trilogy. Millennium also indicates that Anselm is the Bajoran word for father.
Ooh, interesting.
Star Trek Online novel, The Needs of the Many, states that by the early 25th century, Anselm is considered to be one of the great pieces of contemporary literature.
Oh, wow. So it went from generally favorable reviews to...
I guess, yeah.
One of the great pieces of contemporary literature.
I mean, maybe he writes it way better without having lost his father.
Oh, true. Although, apparently he did win a prize. I think Nog mentions he won a prize.
Oh, yeah,
or
like
something.
No, it was his collection of short stories that won the prize.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, Anselm is just a generally well-reviewed book in that timeline.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think there's not much more information even on Memory Beta.
And it has not been made into a holosuite program, so...
Yeah.
Which is where the real money is, apparently, even in the future.
He's not raking in those big Hollywood or whatever the equivalent of Hollywood is in the future dollars.
There's no, like, HBO original series based on Anselm.
That's a shame.
I did like the part where, I guess there's a biography of Jake floating around there somewhere.
Yep, sounds like it.
Which, like, this girl read.
Yeah, it's the moment about that kind of comes across, like, increases how pushy she seems in my head, because he's telling her the story. He's answering her question, telling her the story of why he stopped writing. And she interrupts him to be like, oh, well, in your biography, it says this. And I'm like, shut up. He's telling you. Like, what?
She's like, I came here to learn why you stopped writing. He's like, oh, sure. I'd love to tell you the story. You happened to show up on the one night in my entire life that I'm willing to tell someone this story. And then he starts telling the story. He's like, but in your biography, it just says you left to study science. He's like, you want to hear this story or not? Like, who's telling this story? You want to tell me the story?
Yeah, I wonder who wrote that biography. Maybe his ex-wife needed some cash, and so she...
Oh, yeah. Sure, like a tell-all.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I guess that's about enough about that episode.
So, out there in the audience, anyone listening, tell us in the comments how outrageous we are for not giving it a captain, either one of us.
Yeah, like, write long essays in the comments, and we're just write lots of comments about how wrong we are. Like,
or write algorithm, here we go, or whatever it is.
Yeah, punish us for our lack of vision. But yeah, if you made it this far, thanks for listening. Don't forget to check the description. Maybe I put something interesting there. At least The link to the Sandra Lanch is always down there. If you're a Brandon Sanderson fan.
You should be. If you're not, go and read some.
And then, listen to that podcast.
Yeah.
Data's podcast. But I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
See ya.
Until we meet again, just remember to keep that blood wine warm and the prune juice chilled.